All right, folks, welcome back. Happy Monday. President Jimmy Carter died yesterday at 100 years old. Maybe some say he's been dead a long time. I digress. And I wanted to talk about it a little bit today, but we're going to put that aside for another day because we'll bring you the real Jimmy Carter story another time because I have a very, very, very special guest for you today. And we're not going to give you the sugary, watered-down, fakely sympathetic, oatmeal obit that cable news is obligated to deliver whenever a big name dies. And that's why, by the way, you're here with us. And it's the reason we're growing while those who create content on the legacy media airwaves are bleeding viewers and listeners. We're growing at triple-digit rates, folks, month over month, because unlike the corrupt cable news folks, we will tell you the truth about an ex-president who almost took the country down into an economic pile of burning trash. Let's just say thank God for Ronald Reagan. And the similarity, by the way, of Donald Trump saving America from Biden is so eerie, one may have to conclude that God or higher power has a better plan for this great country. But first, the debate that has roiled social media over the last few days. If you woke up from your Christmas celebrations to a news feed full of stories about something called H-1B visas, you could be forgiven if you were thinking that we were experiencing the latest strain of bird flu. In fact, H-1B is the fulcrum of the first great inter-MAGA debate, and Trump isn't even in office yet. H-1B is not a new pandemic, but a visa program intended to allow American companies to hire temporary skilled workers from abroad. Important to note here, the program is supposed to emphasize skilled. The H-1B program, which goes to some 65,000 people a year, some say a little bit more, most from countries like India and China. Well, it's beloved by tech CEOs because they can bring in highly educated, technically proficient engineers and pay them a lot less than they would pay an American skilled worker doing the exact same job, sometimes 30% less. Its supporters, the techno bros, that wing of the MAGA movement, led by Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, and other Doge proponents, say that it provides American companies with talented employees they simply can't get here. As Musk puts it on X, and I'm quoting, "The reason I'm in America with so many critical people who built SpaceX, Tesla, and hundreds of other companies that made America strong is because of H-1B. Now, the detractors on the other side point to a series of ways the program has been abused over the years. These detractors include Nicole Shanahan, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s former vice presidential candidate, a Silicon Valley lawyer, and notably, in this case, Sergey Brin's ex-wife. The system, she says, the system we've constructed with H-1B visas, whether we like it or not, incentivizes people to come here and serve as essentially indentured servants for big tech, taking on the tough, grueling jobs that few here in America are excited to perform at the current suppressed salaries," Nicole Shanahan wrote on X. The program, she said, concluded, needed to be overhauled. Well, another criticism coming from Eric Weinstein, the mathematician and managing director of Thiel Capital, Peter Thiel, described the H-1B visa program as an anti-labor device. Its original aim, he wrote on X, I'm quoting, was to weaken American workers' bargaining positions so much that they would be forced to mitigate their wage demands at a bargaining table. It's a wage tampering program. Now, disagreements about immigration policy are totally within the bounds of political discourse. That's healthy. What I didn't see coming is the way this debate exploded over the Christmas-Hanukkah holiday. It was focused on a Trump appointee, an Indian-American immigrant named Shriram Krishnan. Shortly after Krishnan was named to an advisory role on AI policy, he called for caps on green cards and these H-1B visas to be lifted. Well, all hell broke loose. Led by Laura Loomer, who I still consider a Trump confidant, Krishnan's critics weren't just angry about his political proposal to lift the caps. Our country was built by white Europeans, Laura wrote on X, not third world invaders from India. She was hardly the only one who had that opinion. This country was built by white Europeans, and we will not destroy it importing third world Indians and Arabs to do our work, steal our jobs, and suppress our wages, wrote another, very much critic. And the debate exploded on social media. Musk weighed in and called them contemptible fools and hateful, unrepentant racists. Friend of mine, Vivek Ramaswamy, jumped into the fray with a post seemingly accusing American culture and parenting as a source for the numbers of foreign workers taking the jobs American graduates with similar qualifications would and do want. In the end, the debate was less about immigration policy or about whether or not H-1B visas can be reformed, which it could, of course. It became about a more fundamental disagreement brewing inside the pro-Trump crowd. I'll call it tech bros versus OG original gangster MAGA, between the Musketeers, Musketeers, and the Steve Bannon wing of the party, between Silicon Valley elites and the working class MAGA faithful. Well, let's bring in the woman who lit the fire that exposed the growing debate over the new guard, Trump supporters, and the original MAGA crowd, Laura Loomer. Laura, really good to have you. You are at the center of this debate. I read so much stuff about this. You are the one who highlighted. Was this a debate about an immigration policy, or is this a game of tug-of-war for those who actually hold or who want Trump's attention, the tech bros or the OG MAGA crow? By the way, both are relevant in my opinion.
Well, thanks for having me, Eric. I really appreciate it. And originally, I mean, obviously, we saw that over the last few days, this has really turned into a ferocious immigration debate. But originally, my post, while I was highlighting the immigration issue, and it certainly was a driving force behind my post, what I was really trying to convey was the fact that all these technocratic elites from Silicon Valley who really don't understand MAGA policies because they were voting for Democrats and funding Democrats, as Saram Krishnan was literally a month before the presidential election. If you look at the FEC records, which is why I got suspended from Twitter, that was supposed to be the point of my post, is that why do we want these tech bros and technocrats and Silicon Valley elitists who are essentially buying influence by showing up to Mar-a-Lago with $1 million checks, or in the case of Elon Musk, writing a check for $200 million to influence the election? Why are they now trying to fracture the MAGA base by saying that we're OG MAGA, but they're new MAGA, and new MAGA has more of a say at the table because they have a higher IQ, and that somehow they're smarter and more entitled to have a say in influencing our policy, especially our immigration policy, because they're rich and superior as it relates to their IQ. So that's why this conversation exploded. And I'm glad that it did, honestly. I'm glad that we're having this conversation because President Trump, unfortunately, is now having his home invaded by Silicon Valley tech elites who really, if we're being honest, these people have never had the interest of our country or putting America first. These people have never given a damn about President Trump or what it means to be MAGA. They have said it themselves. They think that these are old campaign promises that ended as soon as the campaign was over and a new campaign began. While we consider it to be a movement, a MAGA movement of the everyday forgotten man and woman of this country who gave President Trump a mandate to fulfill the promises, right? Promises made, promises kept. Well, the tech elite think that those promises were simply a means to an end so that they can take over, so that they can take the reins once they're in the White House and dictate what our policy should be. And we're not going to have it. And that is why this has now turned into such a volatile debate and discussion, which has unfortunately resulted in the censorship of some of President Trump's most loyal and active supporters, including myself.
So we're going to get to that in a second. And I also will get to Trump's statement, which there's a little controversy shrouding that statement. But I noticed, Laura, it escalated really fast, right? So I'm watching you go at it with Krishnan, I guess that's his name, Krishnan, and he got really personal with you at one point. And so tell us about why you think it escalated so fast. It got very, very personal fast.
Well, it escalated and it got personal fast because people like Elon Musk and David Sachs, of course, now has been appointed to be the incoming AI czar and crypto czar. Well, they were lobbing insults. And so it escalated when Elon Musk called me a troll. Instead of addressing the matter at hand and saying, you know, I agree that I'm new to your movement. And instead of asking for us to hear him out and asking for us to have a civilized conversation, he decided to say that the people who were highlighting these issues, and my tweet, of course, is the one that kicked this whole debate off and made it go viral. He said, quote, Loomer is just trolling for attention, ignore. So apparently, because I actually care about American workers and because I am original MAGA and I remember President Trump's policies, and I posted the videos of President Trump saying that he was going to eliminate H-1B, I'm a troll. I'm just a troll, Eric. So I'm not really an intellectual person. I'm not really a voting American citizen and taxpayer. I'm just a troll who should be classified as spam. And then I let him have it, as I do. And people know that I'm not really known for holding back.
Yeah,
and that's really what I'm known for, right? I speak truth to power, and it doesn't matter who the hell you are. I don't really give a shit how much money you have, okay? I don't give a shit if you're poor, rich. I don't give a shit if you're the president of the United States or the richest man in the world. If I see an issue with something, I'm going to speak out about it. And President Trump respects me. You know, like President Trump I've traveled with President Trump. I was invited as his personal guest to the debate. He's given me shout outs because I am, at the end of the day, a true Trump loyalist, but you sometimes have to have pushback even from your most loyal supporters to remind you and ground you back to how the base, the people that actually got you elected, are going to feel about this. At the end of the day, Elon Musk, his vote is just as equal as the vote of any other Trump supporter, regardless of how much money he has.
So I'm going to play a little devil's. By the way, Laura Loomer is 100% right. If you don't follow her, you should, because she'll have an opinion, but then she's really well known for bringing receipts. And one of the receipts that you brought was this Christian guy saying some pretty nasty things about Trump. I don't know. I guess it was Trump the first time around, about right?
Him and David Sachs associates like Jason Calacanis and all these other Silicon Valley elitists, those technocrats from the All In pod, right? Because they like to say, oh, well, Trump came on our podcast and Trump was on our podcast and Trump said that he supports H-1B visas. So it doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter what Trump says. And then I show the clip of President Trump talking about how we have to eliminate the H-1B visas. And he talks about how it's full of abuse and says all the things that we were saying now that the tech bros who are trying to oppose MAGA are saying are conspiracy theories or racist lies or attacks on Indian Americans. But we have a video of President Trump and a policy statement from President Trump from 2016 saying the same exact thing. So when Elon Musk calls us contemptible fools, well, is Donald Trump a contemptible fool? Because that was Donald Trump's original position. Is Donald Trump a retard? Because, well, that's Donald Trump's original position. So I find it to be insulting, and it makes me question whether or not they really do have the best interests of the MAGA movement and President Trump in mind when they try to get involved in our political movement the day after President Trump survived an assassin's bullet instead of being along with him from the beginning. Because my question is, Eric, and so I really want to know, if these people are so intellectually superior to us and they're the best and brightest, well, how did the best and brightest bet against Donald Trump?
Very good question. And I want to get into, there is a question whether or not Trump needed that money to win. There's an overwhelming, resoundingly win in this 2024 election, so maybe he didn't need it, but they certainly did provide him with the funding to keep going, to knock on doors. And Elon Musk very famously spent a lot of money, $277 million, I believe is the number, making sure the ground vote got in important places like Pennsylvania. I mean, can we say, Laura, that okay, so they came late to the game, but their support and their financial support, but their support, Elon Musk being seen as the purveyor of free speech since he bought X may have influenced a lot of votes.
Yeah, but he's not really a purveyor of free speech. I get where you're going with this. Like, doesn't Elon Musk have a seat at the table because, he gave almost $300 million? Yeah, I'm not saying that he doesn't. I'm saying I'm grateful. We can be grateful. But also, isn't this what we speak out against? Isn't this why we voted for Donald Trump? Because he was the alternative to the establishment on both sides of the aisle that was bought out by the donor class? Or are we basically saying now that Donald Trump is bought and paid for? I don't want Donald Trump to be bought and paid for. Now, I don't believe that Donald Trump is bought and paid for, but this mentality that Elon Musk has and this elitist mentality that Vivek Ramaswamy has is, okay, well, this person gave more money than you, so their voice matters and they're more important than you. And that's not how our society and our political system works. I can be grateful for Elon Musk purchasing Twitter and giving Trump money to help facilitate a ground game in key battleground states, and also at the same time say, hey, you just got here 5 minutes ago and you bought your way into this movement. Why don't you sit down and educate yourself on what we believe in before you open up your mouth and your checkbooks and your bank accounts and try to rewrite what our vision and our agenda and our policy platform is?
You know, Steve Bannon's a very close friend of, I believe, both of ours, who says, close the H-1B visa program down completely. Don't reform it, just close it down completely and ship all the 15 million illegals that came over, including these people, ship them back. I mean, that would be, you know, an extreme version of it. Not that it's saying it's right or wrong, it's an extreme version. Here's my point, is there a middle ground where, and let me just ask you this, before we get to, these tech bros, Elon Musk, Vivek, Sachs, this is their first venture into politics. Do you think maybe they're just used to being able to say their mind and not realize some of the things they're saying, their words weren't measured properly? And maybe that's part of the problem. This is what they believe in.
I'm not going to give them a cop-out or a reason to say, oh, you know, I was misspoken. No, this is what they believe in. They subscribe to this dark enlightenment philosophy in which they really do believe that our country should operate as a corporation, and the head of that corporation should be some type of a monarch CEO. They do not want democracy. They don't want a constitutional republic. They really do believe in technocracy. They want a monarchy. They want to establish technocratic feudalism in our society. And that's what they're trying to do.
Is it, Laura, is it that, or is it they're CEOs of some major tech firms that are benefiting greatly? As Bannon earlier today, you were on Bannon's show earlier today, Bannon had someone point out that the average salary of the H-1B visa technical people up in Silicon Valley is around $118,000, when the national average, the average of all workers up there doing the same job, is around $180,000. So they're literally getting a 33% drop in wage price and putting more in their bottom line. Could it just be really, really aggressive free market capitalism?
No, it's called indentured servitude, and they've talked about it. They've talked about how they want to take these policies that are used in tech companies in Silicon Valley, forcing people to work 80 hours a week for limited pay and a limited standard of living, and they want to replicate that in the United States government through Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy's vanity project called Doge. Okay, Doge is a scam, and I don't really care who I piss off by saying that. It's not about cutting spending. Let's be honest. It's about redirecting spending into the pocket of the elite Silicon Valley billionaires and these elite Silicon Valley tech bros who all happen to have an interest in getting defense contracts. So they're going to gaslight the American people under the guise of like a meme coin, right? Doge, the Doge coin, which now has a government program named after it, and they're going to try to gaslight people through memes and through the partnership of Silicon Valley elites who we've been duped into thinking are on our side, who we've been duped into thinking have this America First vision in mind, when really it's about technocrat first, not America first. They don't give a shit about the American people. They don't give a shit about the American tech worker. They don't give a shit about the struggle of the average American who is struggling to get by and balance their work-life balance. No, they want to treat us like we are a bunch of indentured servitudes, which is why Doge said that they want to hire people who are willing to work 80 hours a week for no salary. Unless you're rich, unless you are a tech bro who can afford to not get paid for 80 hours a week of work, who the hell is going to sign up to work 80 hours a week and not get a paycheck? They want indentured servitude, which comes along with a monarchy. They literally want to be the kings of America.
So the folks understand the way this works and the way it has worked, and I think we've pointed out that a vast majority of these people who are getting these H-1B visas are coming from mostly India, somewhat China, but mostly India, and they'll come over and they'll go through these corporations that actually take these people in. Sometimes they're faking their qualifications. Sometimes they're faking their education. They'll take them in, an Indian, and send them over to Silicon Valley. They'll get paid $118,000, as you point out, Laura, that they're worked extremely hard in Silicon Valley. If it doesn't work out, they're sent home, no harm, no foul, as versus hiring an American student fresh out of engineering school who can't seem to get a job. And there are a lot of people on Twitter, on X, and all over social media saying, I can't. I just graduated from XYZ engineering school. I can't get in there. I want to get in there. I have, I can write code. I can't get in because those jobs seem to be closed to American workers. Now, is that a fair assessment, or am I cherry picking people on X?
Well, there are a lot of people, Americans, especially tech workers and students who are studying STEM, who are being disenfranchised by these policies. But we can't allow them to say, well, the best and the brightest are only coming from third world countries. We have very bright and intelligent people in our own country. Look at the vice president of the United States of America, or should I say the incoming vice president, okay? This was a guy that grew up in Appalachia in what many would call white trash environments, okay? And I'm not condoning that language and saying that it's okay to call Americans white trash, but I feel like that's kind of like the tone that's being directed towards us by people like Vivek Ramaswamy, who is an Indian American. And I want to remind people that in India, they have a caste system, right? So this kind of derogatory language towards your fellow citizen is more acceptable in a society like India, where it is a caste system, okay? It really is a caste system, and people, or the populace in the workforce, is only valued depending on where they fall in that caste system. We don't have that here in America. And it seems like that's the kind of culture that Vivek is trying to import when he says that he has a problem with American culture and he has a problem with the way that Americans parent. Now, we can be honest and say that we do have some deficiencies in our educational system here. Obviously, compared to other countries in the world, we fall shorter, like lower down the list on the totem pole as it relates to where we stand in the global scale for efficiency in science and math and just STEM in general. But are we just going to say, okay, fine, like let's just facilitate and exacerbate that problem by replacing foreigners? Or are we going to use all of these amazing, brilliant minds in tech and all of the resources that they have granted to them by their governments? I mean, by their companies that are propped up by our government and our taxpayer money, okay? I want to remind everybody that these technocratic billionaires, especially people like Elon Musk, he's essentially a welfare queen who receives government subsidies from the American taxpayers. So Elon Musk has been able to, as an immigrant to our country, have the status that he has and has been able to amass the type of wealth that he has because of these peasant American citizen taxpayers and government subsidies, okay? So why don't we invest some of that money back into educating or strengthening the STEM programs here in the United States of America? It's really kind of an abusive relationship when you think about it, because they're using our taxpayer money to dole out government subsidies to these elitist technocrats who are just basically shitting all over the American people.
We waited. So this, if I'm not mistaken, this started just before Christmas, maybe Christmas Eve on a Tuesday. And again, you were the moment you lit the match that ended up being this massive fire. Trump waded into the discussion a little late. I mean, it's almost like a couple of days. We're waiting to see, from my standpoint, it's like, when's Trump going to weigh in? Because let's put this thing to rest, because the left is loving this, by the way. By the way, the left is loving this. We'll get to that in a minute. But Trump eventually weighed in and seemingly side with Musk's and the techno bros. And this is from the New York. Let me just read this statement, and I'll let you comment. This is Trump's statement to the New York Post. I've always liked the visas. I've always been in favor of the visas. That's why we have them. I have many H-1B visas on my properties. I've been a believer in H-1B. I have used it many times. It's a great program. Now, there is some controversy over that statement given to the Post. That reporter, I know him very well, John Levine, he may have baited Trump with that question, apparently never followed up. He's the reporter. And by the way, that guy, Levine, was a never Trumper turned sympathetic voice once he got hired by the Rupert Murdoch-owned New York Post. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, exactly. I was going to say we have to be really careful about trusting anything that comes out of Murdoch media because, well, Rupert Murdoch himself is a foreigner and he owns all of these foreign publications. And he explicitly stated and you know, because you used to work at Fox News, you saw all the leaked communications that came out when they had their lawsuit with Dominion. And Rupert Murdoch was on the record saying that he wants to destroy President Trump and that he wants to eliminate President Trump and that he was dedicated to helping support President Trump's primary challenger, which is why Fox News created this whole like faux, shadow campaign for Ron DeSantis, which was disguised as a book tour, and the book contract or the publishing agreement that was given to Ron DeSantis came from the publishing company that is owned by Rupert Murdoch. So you can't really trust anything that comes out of Murdoch media. And some people will say, oh, well, you can't say that everything that comes out of Murdoch media is a lie. Well, you're absolutely right about John Levine. I know John Levine for a long time, too. And John Levine was never a Trump supporter. And then it sounds like Trump was kind of baited. And this wasn't an in-person interview, from my understanding. And it's not really a direct statement from President Trump. President Trump uses H-1B visas and J-1 visas at his properties and his resorts, and he has utilized some H-1B visas. But I personally don't trust this statement that came out of John Levine in the Post. It seems like it was coordinated and structured to further inflame the MAGA base. And I'm not going to trust anything until I hear it come out of Donald Trump's mouth directly, or until I see something from Stephen Miller, who is now going to be the deputy chief of staff and senior advisor on issues related to immigration policy, just as he always has been to President Donald Trump. And what I do know about Stephen Miller is that Stephen Miller, probably thinks that these people are contemptible fools. I'm not speaking for Stephen Miller, but Stephen Miller has aggressively been outspoken against the H-1B visa program. And I don't think that Stephen Miller is going to appreciate seeing all these technocratic, spoiled billionaire tech bro freaks call President Trump's base a bunch of retards and contemptible fools and say that we need to go F ourselves in the face. And yeah. I'll take that to the bank. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Stephen Miller pushes out, because Stephen Miller is President Trump's voice on immigration.
Are you surprised we haven't heard from any of these folks in Trump world right now? Steve, these people are on Fox a lot. Stephen's a good friend of mine. Stephen Miller used to come on my show once every week or two or so. But I'm very close. And I text them, and ominously, I haven't heard back. So I'm not sure where they are. Is it possible they've been told to stand down?
Well, I think that this is the problem. This is the problem when you allow for a billionaire to make a $200 million donation. And so maybe we really do need to have campaign finance regulations in this country. I mean, essentially what is happening, and I love President Trump. I'm not saying that President Trump is bought and paid for, but it sounds like people are scared of crossing the king of the world, Elon Musk, the monarch, okay? Nobody wants to cross this guy, the richest man in the world who controls access to social media, the digital town square, and is now basically has everybody in a codependent, abusive relationship like they're a bunch of junkies, because he's been able to monetize the platform so that all the conservatives using his platform are essentially addicted. They're a bunch of addicts now, addicted to social media because their voices were silenced for so long. And it's like cutting a junkie off cold turkey. Okay, you're going to go crazy and you're going to have withdrawals. And he understands now that he's created this codependent junkie versus supplier relationship where if you question or if you try to criticize Elon Musk, you will be demonetized. Like I was demonetized. You will have your check mark removed, and then they will say it's because of doxing. And even when you apologize, let's do this.
Let's stop right there, because this is another important aspect of this whole what you've unearthed, really, not just the H-1B visa, but this whole push and pull from a tug-of-war, really. I call it a tug-of-war between old school, original gangster MAGA and the new techno bros being pulled for the hearts and strings of not only viewers and listeners and writers, but Trump's attention as well. And it's going back and forth. But you say you've been demonetized. Elon Musk would say he did it because you posted something that was already public. I believe, wasn't it Krishnan's donations to FEC, an FEC website, which is accessible. Did you dox, and is that the reason you got your check mark removed and your subscribers' ability for you to get monetized?
Yeah, and I apologize for picking up my phone, but this now has been escalated to such a drastic level that I now have United States senators calling me and wanting to get my feedback on this because they are now starting to see the implications and the national security risks that are forming from these technocratic billionaires. And that's what my phone is ringing because throughout this interview, I've already had 2 United States senators
Who's
calling my phone.
Who's calling?
So the fact of the matter is that this is now an issue that we need to have Republican senators intervene on this because we're about to see the confirmation process take place. And what I want to know is if some of these people are now in made up positions that are not necessarily true cabinet positions that require confirmation, what checks and balances are going to be put in place for the confirmation process to make sure that these people are not jeopardizing President Trump
This
with
is
their own
fascinating.
conflicts.
This is fascinating. You're literally breaking news as we speak here, Laura. So there are U.S. senators who will be involved in the confirmation process who are concerned about some of the folks that are being put up into the administration and may not. Boy, I've been on record saying that anyone.
They're calling me live right now while I'm on your show. So, look, I'm not bragging. I'm just saying to you that this conversation has completely derailed certainly all of my plans that I had this week and how I had hoped to spend my holiday. But it's for the greater good. And I think that we need to start having this conversation because you have these technocratic billionaires that are now involved in these conversations. They are having unfettered access to President Trump and to JD Vance. And I am not saying this to be problematic. I am as pro-Trump as they come. I am a diehard MAGA loyalist, and I want President Trump's nominees to be confirmed. However, I don't think that a lot of the people who have been nominated for the tech positions are really the right people for the job. And I think that some of them have enormous conflicts, especially as it relates to our national security. How are these people going to ethically carry out their duties if they're unwilling to divest from their investments and they're unwilling to, cede their communication with foreign leaders? You have Elon Musk, who right after the election is taking meetings with Iranian officials and meeting with Chinese officials. He is funded, his gigafactory in Shanghai is funded by Xi Jinping and the premier of China, Li Qiang. These are not people who share our values and our views as America First patriots. And I am concerned about technocratic billionaires who view themselves with a God complex,
Laura,
who think that they are kings.
This is important. Here's a very
having
important
this type
question.
of access.
Very important question. So I watched you too. I watched you and Christian get into it. You got extremely heated, nasty. But I know you a long time, and generally you'll bring the receipts and you'll stay on it. It's hard to move you, right? It's hard to move your opinion. But I did notice at some point, and interestingly, some of this stuff got on his side. You two seem to make up, right? And it seemed to be like, okay.
Well, that's somebody else. That's not Serum. So there was another Indian account that was retweeted by a lot of these technocrats. That's not the same guy. So that account that you're talking about is one of the other accounts that he was like an Indian, and I don't even know if it's like a real account or it's AI, but all the tech accounts were engaging with it, and it's one of the accounts that went viral throughout this conversation. But that I just want to be clear that is not Serum's account.
Here's my question: has anyone from the White House reached out to you seem to tone it down a little bit on Sunday, and now you said I apologize about doxing or something, and it felt like it was unlike you, Laura, because I know you a long time. No,
it's not. I'm trying to act in good faith, but honestly, it's very oppressive because this is the richest man in the world, and he knows that I'm a Trump ally. Okay, so I'm not going to disclose conversations I've had with President Trump or conversations I may or may not have had with his advisors and Trump administration officials about this matter, because it would be inappropriate to do so, just like it would be inappropriate for me to speak on behalf of, President Trump. But I will say that it's very oppressive in nature because I'm a Trump ally and I use my account to help further the Republican cause. And I'm also a citizen journalist, and my livelihood now is being affected by my demonetization. So I would be lying if I said it doesn't have a chilling effect, because I was suspended for 12 hours. And then it was like, oh, you better stay in line and you better apologize or you're never going to get any of this back. So they kind of push you up against the wall. And I am just, an everyday American citizen. I'm not a millionaire. I'm not a billionaire. So I'm a journalist who has been blacklisted. And if anybody knows my history, I have been silenced. My book behind me, Loomered, How I Became the Most Banned Woman in the World. I've been debanked. I've been demonetized. I've been censored. I've been targeted by the FBI. So how am I supposed to make a living as a journalist and have my voice shared if I'm not hired by mainstream media and my only way to get my voice out is through citizen journalism and so-called free speech platforms? So it's not that I'm toning it down, but what are people like me supposed to do when the richest man in the world isn't going to budge on this issue? And President Trump's most loyal supporters are now being demonetized and having their check marks taken away.
Do you think... he's got, 22 days left before he's sworn in. Was that statement enough for you from the New York Post, whatever?
I don't even think it's a real statement. I don't even think it's a real statement. I can't trust the statement that came out of John Levine. I honestly can't. So as I said before, unless it comes directly from President Trump's mouth, not an interpretation of an alleged conversation with President Trump, because, I'm not saying that Levine made it up, but we have seen reporters take things out of context. Until I see a video statement from Donald Trump, or until Donald Trump picks up the phone and calls me or issues a statement, or his advisors in the form of Susie Wiles or Chris LaCivita or Jason Miller or James Blair issue a statement on this, I'm not taking it as a legitimate statement. So I want to hear a direct statement on this issue from the mouth of President Trump himself through Truth Social, or a statement that is prepared by him and his staff on official, what do they call it? A Trump campaign letterhead, right? those statements that they push out from the transition team. But John Levine is not a spokesperson for the Trump transition team. Okay. John Levine is not Caroline Leavitt. John Levine is not Jason Miller. John Levine is not Susie Wiles. John Levine is not Stephen Miller. John Levine is not Donald Trump.
All right, let me ask you this. So this started, and I noticed there's a massive following behind you, big push. Like, Laura's right. She represents MAGA, the original MAGA. Who are these newcomers to the game? They weren't there the first time. We've been here from the beginning. And you seem to represent their feeling. Now, there are some big Twitter X accounts that were behind, and then seem to evolve to taking the other side at some point. Very, very pro-Trump X accounts, but they were behind you, and then they seem to go the other way with it. Are you disappointed in some of them?
Well, they're junkies. They're junkies. I just explained this dynamic. So they're a bunch of junkies who are addicted to not losing their supply, and Elon Musk is the supplier. So he's been able to basically, and I'm not saying he's bribing people, but it's kind of like a bribe in a sense, because he's been able to monetize the platform, and people are now addicted to posting so much so that they get ad revenue and they get subscription money. And you can make a lot of money if you have a large following or your tweets go viral. So of course they're not going to cross Elon Musk, because they saw how the person that criticized him was demonetized and had their checkmark taken away. And they could say it's because of doxing. They can say that it's because of criticism, whatever reason or excuse they want to provide. It still happened. It still happened. And so everybody now is acting like a junkie, and they don't want to bite the hand that feeds them, or get on a bad relationship with their supplier, because what happens to junkies who go cold turkey? Honestly, that's how I view it now. I view it as kind of like a junkie dealer relationship, which is why a lot of conservatives are acting like a bunch of pussies, and they don't want to call them out for this. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're junkies.
Yeah, there was, in fact, on the left, Aaron Rupert is one of the most liberal leftists. After your interview with Bannon, cut a clip of you saying something similar to that, and he said the worst person in the world is making sense right here. How does this play out, Laura? How does this go forward? With only less than 3 weeks before he gets sworn in.
Well, it's not the only time that this is going to happen, right? So they want to call themselves new MAGA. They're not new MAGA. Nothing about these people is MAGA, okay? Just because you are a technocratic billionaire doesn't mean that you're MAGA, okay? Anybody can buy influence if they have enough money, right? Money makes the world go round, clearly. So clearly you can talk shit about President Trump, and you can deplatform his supporters, and you can interfere in the election. You could try to steal the election, and you can walk into Mar-a-Lago with $1 million check and everything is good, okay? That's how it works. This is not going to be the only uncanny rift between President Trump's original supporters and these technocratic infiltrators who are trying to have a Silicon Valley empire, a monarchy in the White House. Okay. What's going to happen when President Trump wants to have tariffs with China? What's going to happen when President Trump wants to crack down on China? Is Elon Musk going to say, no, I depend on Xi Jinping for my gigafactory. No, I'm friends with Xi Jinping. He offered me citizenship in China. True story, by the way, look it up. Well, and then what are we going to do? Like, is he going to write another $200 million check to Trump? And then what? We're going to be soft on China?
Here's why.
Like, where is this going? Where is this going?
I don't know where. I really, you know, I think we're hitting on something. I think I've been talking about this for a few days now. This isn't the H-1B visa discussion. It's what's happening. It's this tug-of-war between old MAGA.
It's about the co-opting. It's a co-opting and the literal replacement. Okay.
Oh, so very, very fascinating.
It's the replacement of MAGA.
Do you understand that the metaphor is incredible? How replacement, it's our foreign workers replacing American workers with H-1B visas and immigration, or our old school original gangster MAGA people being replaced by the new techno MAGA. It's incredible what a metaphor this is. Laura, final thought here. Thank you for your time. You've been very generous. Final thought here. A lot of times when things get heated up, people like you and I know Trump likes you. You were on his plane on one of the rallies, et cetera. When things get heated up, sometimes the phone rings and you get the call like, hey, have you heard?
I have not received a phone call telling me to tone it down. I'm not going to say what my conversations have or haven't been, because it would be wildly inappropriate to disclose conversations that I have had with President Trump. But I can 100% say that I have not received a phone call from President Trump telling me to tone it down. Swear to God on my own life. That never happened. So people can insinuate and think that I got a phone call telling me to tone it down. No, I never received a phone call from Trump himself telling me to tone anything down. I just, I'm being honest when I say, look, like I'm a journalist. I'm not a billionaire. I'm not independently wealthy. That's my livelihood. And I'm not trying to concede. I was acting in good faith, and I personally believe that FEC records are public documents. But if that's the Twitter policy and they say that I'm doxing, well, in a good faith effort, I apologized and said I was not trying to dox, but if this is doxing, I apologize. And you would think that if somebody was making a good faith effort, then Twitter may try to update the policy to make it more clear as it relates to reporting FEC records, which is public information. And you know that when you donate to a candidate or a campaign or a PAC, that's public, and you agree to the terms to have your address and your name and your info disclosed publicly. So it's not like, I guess I disagree on the concept of what it means to dox. But I learned still apologize.
I learned something too, that would be considered doxing. I would never have thought, if I can find it on the internet very easily. Final question. Elon Musk says, Laura, you're very influential. You've been there since. I'd like to fix this. Would you? And what would it take for Elon and you to mend ways?
Well, I'm open to a conversation with Elon. I've said that. I tried to say that the other day, but he was mocking me. And somebody said, oh, Laura Loomer says she wants to have a civilized conversation with Elon Musk. And then somebody said, oh, the Al-Qaeda wants to have a civilized conversation. And he replied with a laughing emoji, basically insinuating that I'm a terrorist. Not cool at all, because, again, richest man in the world with access to government and defense contracts, essentially implying that a U.S. citizen and journalist is a terrorist. That should frighten everybody. Okay. It's not a meme and it's not a joke. It is very serious, and I take it very seriously. I would have a conversation with Elon Musk if he said, okay, like, let's see if we can resolve this. I do want to resolve this. In fact, I would even offer to be an advisor, right? Let me help you and the other tech bros understand how MAGA is going to react to these policies. You're new here, so why don't you try to seek the counsel of somebody who actually understands how these people are going to react? Because clearly, okay, my finger is on the pulse, and you could see that from the firestorm that erupted this weekend. I don't hate Elon Musk, but I do think that we need to have a peaceful dynamic that exists here. It needs to be a respectful dynamic where everybody feels like their voices are heard, regardless of whether you're a tech billionaire or you're an original MAGA supporter, or even if you aren't a MAGA supporter, because all of our votes are the same value at the end of the day. Our bank accounts might have a different value, but our votes are supposed to be equal. So our voices should be equal. I would like my checkmark reinstated. I would like my monetization reinstated. And I would like the accounts of the other people who have had their check marks and their demonetization taken away suspiciously amid this conversation and debate to also be reinstated. If we're going to be free speech absolutists, we really need to be committed to that, regardless of whose egos are hurt. So I'm hoping that there can be a resolution because it's the right thing to do. And also, it's the peaceful thing to do and the respectful thing to do for President Trump, because this is a necessary distraction. I'm not saying that this was a bad thing to have had happen, but also this has no end in sight as it currently stands because people are being a bit pigheaded in the way that they're addressing the subject. So I would be more than happy to have a conversation with Elon Musk. He has my cell phone number. I know that for a fact. I have his cell phone number. So the reality is Elon knows how to reach me if he wants to reach me. And if President Trump wants to be the one to broker a deal, I'm for it. I will have a conversation with Elon Musk and I will help to try to facilitate a bridge between the MAGA movement that feels disenfranchised by these comments and the technocratic elite. But you have to restore the account.
There you go. Laura, first guest ever on Bolling podcast, and we made it a doozy, folks. Thank you for your time, and you keep us close to, how this plays out. And thank you again for your very generous time on the person who's at the center of one of the biggest debates, certainly of 2024, maybe on to 2025. Laura Loomer, everybody. Laura, thank you for you.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, folks. Well, that'll do it for Bolling on a Monday. And guess what? It's only Monday, so we have a lot more days this week. We will see you again tomorrow. Bolling out.